What's that? High above me, the vulture is back. I watch the grace of his high, lazy circles navigating the late evening heat drafts deftly. Slowly, his circles become lower, tighter, closer. Does he sense a weakening in me? Frankly, his presence makes me a bit nervous. Even so, I don't seem to have the motivation tonight to run and scream and show him just how alive I am. He senses something. Mealtime for him, perhaps. Something more ominous for me. He settles on the branch of a nearby olive tree. Here in the dusk, he begins his vigil. But wait a minute. He is not looking at me. His gaze is focused over there. It is the one whom I saw in the wilderness once before. At that time, the devil left for a more opportune time. Apparently, this is that time. The Son of the Most High falls to the ground, clawing at the earth like an animal in the throes of death, mumbling, sobbing, praying. His hair and robe are drenched in blood, sweat, and tears. Last time he was fasting. This time he has just finished a meal. Last time the setting was hot and dry and wild. Tonight the air is cool and the location more civilized. Yet this man appears to be even more in agony than he was in the wilderness. His is no mountaintop experience, nor even a wilderness experience. This is the valley of the shadow of death. On the mountaintop, the view is majestic, and I feel so close to God there. In green pastures and by still waters, I have a clear sense that the Lord is guiding and blessing me. But here in the dark valley where the shadows fall first and nighttime predators come out to do their deadly work, God seems far away, almost irrelevant compared to my internal fears. I fear evil. My struggle is not for comfort or assurance. It is much more primal. I fear death. I want to ask questions. Why am I here? Is this some sort of punishment? When do I leave? Isn't it more blessed to be blessed than to be tested? There are 100 other questions in my mind. But seeing this one before me, an internal spiritual battle, somehow makes all my questions pale in comparison. Jesus is battling with the same fear of mortality that I do, except that he has an option. He could opt out of suffering and death if he chooses. He must choose between his will and that of his Father. Starting tonight, he begins walking through the valley of the shadow of death. He carries a cross, and they nail him to it. And as he hangs, he will say strange things. Words like, "Why have you forsaken me?" and "Forgive them," and "It is finished." All of these have great benefit to me, but come at extreme cost to him. I can't remember what my questions were anymore. Watching him go through this valley, it is enough. For a moment, I see clearly. The answers were not contained in my questions anyway. The answer is him, Jesus, slain outside the camp in the desert before the foundations of the world. Again, I realize that I am not so very alone after all. Being here in the valley of the shadow of death, I joined the list of saints and martyrs through the centuries, that great cloud of witnesses who together testify that faith is not based on what I see, but on what I hold on to in the night, in the wild, and in the storm, in the valley. God is not surprised by death. He is not powerless in the valley of its shadow. He is the sovereign one, the Lord of the heavens and the earth. Far too often he does not explain his purposes or his actions, but he is always here. He is Emmanuel, God with me. Yes, It is amazing. The great shepherd leads me, a needy sheep, beside still waters and keeps me company as I drink. He guides me to a green pasture and makes me lie down and rest and eat with him. When times are good, we delight in each other. Because I've seen his loving care in the good times, I can trust him through the bad. I can even walk through the valley of the shadow of death and fear no evil. God comforts me with his rod and his staff. He prepares a table before me, even though I am still surrounded by my enemies. He generously applies soothing ointment on my wounded head. In short, he and I continue to take delight in each other, even in the bad times. Surely goodness and mercy will follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever, just as he dwells with me today. Didn't Jesus say that the Good Shepherd lays down his life for his sheep? Could it be that when I go through the valley of the shadow of death, I need not so much fear death, because the one who led me there is in the process of laying down his life for me? Not to keep me from physical harm necessarily, but to protect me from my true enemies who seek to harm me eternally. The vulture will not get his meal here tonight. His target will be dead soon enough, but God has plans for the body that do not include decay. Death is the ultimate enemy, the final fear. Because this life is all I can see, my flesh believes that my goal must be to stay alive as long as possible. But in Christ, death becomes nothing more than an open door to more and better life. Life that has no end. I guess you could say the sting of death is erased.